They don't stop, they don't shoot away, nothing.
Yeah, these guys are, of course, all the raptors are protected, so you can't really.
I know, absolutely.
They're fascinating to watch for
Oh,
the first 5
absolutely,
minutes.
but they destroy your property. Beautiful birdhouses up there, all full of holes now.
I don't have any good vulture recipes.
Yeah, they're good, well, they're, like I said, they're protected, you can't do anything with them anyway. One of them was sat in the bird bath almost all day, and there's no water in it, because I stopped putting water in it, because they were doing things to that
You know,
too.
when it gets cold, maybe they'll leave.
Well, I'm hoping, I looked online and it said that they don't, it takes really bad weather to get them to migrate,
Really?
so I don't know what.
Don't send them my way, I got my own problems with blue jays and.
Well, these live in the barn on the property next door, they don't roost at my house.
Oh,
They
there you go.
They leave it dark, but they're back in the morning, all 4 of them sitting there staring at you.
There's always a few pairs at Stonehouse Pond in Barrington. Up on the top of those ledges, there's a established, they don't call it a rookery, but they call it something similar where they come every
And
spring.
they're quite, when you look at them, their beaks are quite,
Yeah.
Yes, sticking pipe. My wife still has a scar from one. My wife still has a visible scar from one.
good evening, madam.
Good evening.
Uh-oh, she's
Just tell me you need them.
Oh,
Where are we going? Did you guys cupcakes?
my gosh. You gonna make this regular?
No, I figured tonight's the night when no one else is coming except, us and Mr. Chapin and. It's an assortment. I got vanilla, strawberry, I got 1 blueberry and 3 chocolate. With like a citrus vanilla French buttercream.
Jeez. I've seen that Dubai chocolate everywhere since you and I talked about that, everywhere.
Coming for you. So. Are we sitting like this? This doesn't make any sense.
We're gonna have to move.
Yeah.
This is gonna sort of, eventually
Eventually, we're
over
doing
there.
anything other than this. That's what it usually feels like now.
How scoot you can scoot a little bit.
I feel like rotate that. I feel like there's a more logical way to do this. Am I messing with your time schedule here?
No, you've got 2 minutes.
So 2 minutes to rearrange the furniture,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
Could sit on the other side. but
It
there's not
could,
much- but there's not much need to move.
Just the-
Don't worry, I won't break it, I promise. But like, I could like, turn it this way.
I'm impressed.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Now you can move your microphone back, if you'd like.
Well, it's technically yours. Thank God.
Move our microphone back.
All right.
Listen to my beautiful voice.
Turn them on. I would keep those out of view because if they see them, then they're gonna come to the next meeting.
I'll bring them to the next
Do you have
one.
room for
I think we
microphones?
need a Brad more than that.
So,
Today.
recording?
There's certain people in town, if there's free food, they'll show up. They'll show up. I think we all know who that is. So. What?
Is that we getting easier?
No, I don't know. That's, no.
Need to go to a library luncheon.
That's true. I've yet to make one of those, what, the soup things there?
You will recognize the usual.
Oh, yes, so you know who I'm talking about, okay.
Oh.
See, you know who I was talking about. It's 7 o'clock in the wonderful town of Lee, New Hampshire. It is October 7th, 2025. I don't know if you want to, because this is a joint meeting, so you should do
Okay,
your thing. So,
thank you, Mr. Bugby. This evening, we have John Tappan here to present an overview of the financial planning tool. John?
Okay, I'd like to take 2 minutes to review the differences between the FPT and the capital improvements program. The FPT is not a substitute for CIP. Planning Board of New Hampshire Handbook for Local Officials states that a CIP is, quote, an outline of anticipated expenditures for capital projects projected over a period of at least 6 years. Capital projects are those that relate to infrastructure and the purchase of land and in some cases engineering studies, end quote. As the primary purpose of the FPT is to provide a calculation of the needed appropriations to trust and reserve funds to support the planned expenditures from those funds, the FPT should include all expected expenditures from those funds, not just expenditures for capital projects. RSA 674:6 states that, quote, the capital improvements program shall classify projects according to the urgency and need for realization and shall recommend a time sequence for their implementation, end quote. The FPT provides a schedule, but it does not classify projects according to urgency and need for realization. The FPT may have 2 projects scheduled for the same year with no analysis of urgency. And last, RSA 674:5 states that, quote, the sole purpose and effect of the capital improvements program shall be to aid the selectmen and the budget committee in their consideration of the annual budget, end quote. While the FPT is also an aid to the select board and perhaps to the ABC, it's just an aid to do the arithmetic for them in real time. It does not provide the independent analysis that a CIP committee would provide. So I have some preliminary information that you might want to just look at before we get into the FPT. How has the trustees of trust funds been doing with public money? And this shows our effective return for the past 2 fiscal years plus the first quarter of this year. It looks pretty dire when you look at it on a scale of 4% to 5%. It looks much better when you look at it from 0 to 5%. And you can see it is going down. Part of my job as one of the inputs to the FPT is making a prediction for, by the end of this year, what will our effective yield have been. And I have to admit, I cannot see the future any better than the Federal Open Market Committee can. So it is something of a guess. These big dips that you see here, this is when we move money, either new funds coming in or we have to make a large reimbursement to the town. We take money from where they're earning a higher yield, bring them into a money market, and from that money market we can write a check. Or first they're deposited into the money market, and then they go to other places where they earn a higher yield.
John, can you tell us, I don't know, maybe if you know off the top of your head, how much of the funds that we have are in fixed interest rates at the moment? Because you said some of them are falling off. You had some at 5.
Yes.
But
In fact, this week there's going to be a significant drop because a CD that was earning over 5.5 APY matures this week. And it's not going to get anything like that. And that will be another little drop like this. Right now, most of our money is in the New Hampshire Public Deposit Investment Pool, BDIP. It has been going down. We do not have anything like a normal yield curve right now. So shorter term yields are still earning more than longer term until you get to like 20-year bonds. Some people say we've returned to a normal yield curve, and it kind of looks that if you just look at, say, 1 year to 20-year, but there's a huge dip in the middle at like 3 years.
Okay.
And 5 years is not even back to the short term.
Thank you.
So some of the inputs that are needed, one of them is what's the history of accrued benefits. And this is the history going back to 2007. And you can see from the amounts that each year that's withdrawn from the fund, it varies tremendously. Fiscal year 2025, there were no withdrawals from the fund. 3 years ago, it was over 57,000. So this is the average, so average the last 2 years, last 3 years, last 4 years, etc. But you would expect that there's 2 reasons for this to go up, because there's inflation, wages and salary are going up, but also the number of employees of the town has gone up over this long range. So just as 2 points that I was able to get from our finance officer, 2010 and 2020, this is what salaries were, and how they changed over 10 years. Over 10 years, that was an increase of 43%, which is an annual rate of 3.67. So if you take these previous nominal figures and adjust them for what would it have been in today's dollars with today's number of employees at today's employment costs, that's what this adjustment is. And then what is the most recent average? And the average is just about $20,000. But of course, there's another factor in here, and that is over this length of time, the rules have changed as to how much accrued benefits people can accumulate. So the number that's being used really needs to be, have the town administration look at that and what is our liability. So right now, the 15,000 is the number that's used. We have in here construction. So Turner Building Cost Index is a as-delivered cost index. It's not like means, which is the cost of production. This is what does it cost to buy the commercial building. There was a long period of time when it was running about 5% per year. Of course, COVID made huge changes. Then problems with supply made big changes in the opposite direction. And now it's about 4% per year.
John, what would you use that figure for?
So in the FPT, for every one of the funds, there's an estimate of, for the future, how much it costs going to go up.
Right.
And part of that is, of course, inflation. But for whatever product you're talking about, there are cost increases that are above inflation.
And that's what this would be.
And that's what this would be for. Some things, I mean, the big one that everybody knows about is fire apparatus, which has been recently doubling about every 10 years, which is like a 7% per year increase. The New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, since 1994, these are 20-year bond rates, and they were going down, down, down until reaching a low in 2020 and 2021, and since then they've come back up. The size of the bubble is the size of the total volume that's offered. If I took the time, it would be better if it was the actual volume of the 20-year bonds, because they offer 5, 10, 15, 20, sometimes even 25 and 30. That would take a lot more time for me to do. That's important because sometimes you get these real outliers, but if an outlier is a very small offering, then the rate may be more dependent on just what that particular offering was. It might have just been one bond for one town. So, to the FPT. Oh, I think we're done with this. So the version of the FPT that we're looking at tonight is 0.02. When I rolled it over to the new year, it was labeled 0.01. The 0 before the decimal point indicates that it's a draft. So draft 01 was just when I brought it up to this year. And we're looking at draft 02, which right now, because no changes were made, is actually the same as 01. So it's for, oh, there's a typo there. So. Select board. The other part of this would be if there are updates made to particular worksheets. This would be when department heads come and provide updates, then that would be entered in here so you could see how long has it been since one of these has been updated, but there haven't been any updates this year. Beginning of year balance, this is for fiscal year 2026. The funds that here are not all the town funds, it's just those funds where the town may be voting to put money into. And town buildings and renovating town hall have been combined because all of the town buildings capital reserve fund could be used for town hall. Town hall, of course, can only be used for town hall, but it's only a little over 50,000 out of this 800,000. Also here is the planned deposits. Those were already made, have been received by the trustees and deposited. So these amounts are what was in the fund as of the end of last year, beginning of this year. And
So the 570,000 is in addition to the 3.8, 3.6 million?
correct.
Those are the ones we voted on it.
That was what was voted on last year and approved. There were others on the ballot not approved. Accrued benefits was not approved, and revaluation.
Which, strangely enough, is not going to lower taxes.
It needs to be explained that just voting against it doesn't postpone a revaluation. So.
I think the 20-some people that showed up at the delivery session probably knew that.
Yeah.
Other people didn't.
So this is where I make my guesstimate as to what I think the effective interest rate will be over the entire year. I think it might be better than that, but who knows? And then what interest rate would be used for future years. And this graph shows what right now is calculated as the required deposits for all of the funds, and this is without having made any changes. So
2026 is what we actually voted on, it's not.
that is what we actually voted on.
It's the 924, the next year.
Correct.
Is what the financial planning tool is saying we should deposit this year.
Correct.
What was the number we should have deposited for 26? That 570 was dramatically
It
less.
was, yes, it was.
It doesn't matter, John, but that
I'd
is
have to
just,
call up a previous version,
don't
but-
go there. But it was a lot, this is a lot less than the financial planning tool recommended.
Correct.
That's the important part.
All of the appropriations that were calculated were either reduced, some of them were reduced quite a bit, like highway and transfer station. The only one that was increased was town buildings, and that was because at the time, all of the known needs for town buildings, for new buildings like office building, renovating the town hall, those costs were all just X'd out.
Yep.
So recognizing that, the appropriation was more than the amount actually calculated.
And why does it drop off after 2042?
A big part of this is fire apparatus, and I think that's the last fire apparatus piece that we have. The next one would be out here, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 years. So
So it's looking up.
No, because eventually we're going to put more things into it.
Correct.
That
It was
really
just
Correct.
going into it.
It's just that we don't have that quite far in advance.
You actually can put in things that are beyond the plan. The plan is a 20-year plan, but right here is enter the maximum allowable range for data validation. So it lets you put in dates for the next 30 years. You could go all the way to 2057, even though those are not calculated, but data validation will accept them. If you accidentally put in something like 2228, a data validation would say, oops, that's not within the allowable date range. As much as possible, I like to put in features that find and correct your mistakes. There's a page for what are the costs for each of the buildings that we have, and then in order, what are they? Again, many of these numbers are just what happens to be there right now, hasn't been updated. If you make changes, this is a quick view, shows what were the appropriations this year, what does the FPT calculate for next year. You can put in overrides on each worksheet. What is the appropriation with the overrides, and then having put in the overrides, what is calculated for the next year. Because this tool just does the arithmetic. It doesn't get upset when it has to recalculate. All of the worksheets between worksheet start sum and end sum are worksheets for funds, and those are what's calculated. Each page, the top of it is the same. Name of the fund, purpose of the fund, where the funding sources are. I guess I should have shown you back here. When estimates are put in, several years ago, one of the select board members asked, how do we know how good those estimates are? So there's a grading for how good is the estimate, A through E. And these terms here are just to give you an idea of what A through E should be. If it really went out to competitive bids, it's an A. And if it's just a plain guess, it's an E. And here's some descriptions in between. Initially, first versions of this tool, all the funding all the money had to come from the Capital Reserve Fund or Trust Fund. But now you can put in money from the fund. Here's I think a leftover from previous ARPA 2.
Is there any ARPA left?
We'll get to it. I think there is actually one item for about $6,000 that says it's coming from ARPA. Or is it coming from the annual budget? Is it coming from the Library Foundation? Is it to come from a bond? Or is it just not funded? Accrued benefits. So right now, accrued benefits, the amount that's put in is from 2023, it was an educated guess, $15,000 every year. And that, of course, gets escalated by 1.67% above the inflation rate. And that works back to the 3.67 that was previously calculated as the rate at which our total wage and salary costs have been going up. Other features here for all the funds, you probably don't want to do planning where you just have enough money to get to what you expect to spend each year. If you had a system like that, then you would be inclined to try to pad each cost estimate. Because if you plan on something that's going to cost $100,000 and it costs $105,000, and all you have is $100,000, the trustees of trust funds are only going to write a check for $100,000, not $105,000. So this is a place where you can put in what do you want for a margin as a percentage of that year's expenditure, with an upper limit and a lower limit, Right now, the lower limit and the upper limit are both set to $10,000, so this is saying there will always be a margin of $10,000. These margins are not cumulative. This is not like adding that amount to each one of these. These margins are only used as each year's appropriation is calculated, but they do not carry forward. I do have a PowerPoint that shows how these are calculated. When we're all done with this, if anybody wants to see that, I did show it last year, and we could look at that. I think you probably want to move on. Cemetery fence. Again, none of these have been updated this year. There was no request going out to department heads or committees or commissions to provide updates. So this is from last year. And they have 3 fences, and at that time these truly were plain guesses because they had tried but had not been able to get companies to provide estimates that were what they were actually asking for. They got estimates for things that didn't actually match what they asked for.
And it took quite a while to get those.
Yes, yeah, they had a very difficult time. Some of it is for things like Lee Hill Cemetery fence has the fence in front of the cemetery, right by the road. It's an historic fence. They wanted to do repairs and replacements that are like what's there. And I think the estimates they got were for modern fences that are not concrete, granite posts and iron rails. Fire equipment. So all of these inputs are in blue. When I write spreadsheets, that's my shortcuts to myself to tell me blues are user inputs. But here I've changed some things. So I changed this brick red color because the radio infrastructure was not done in 2025. The engine that was going to be purchased is not being done in 2027. It had to be purchased early, so it's going to be in this fiscal year. That is the price. So it's not a $1.2 million in 2027, which is what was expected to cost for custom. It's a demo with some modifications to it for 82701. Radio infrastructure, they're still working on that.
Yes.
So,
As we go through, if you've got questions for John, ask them.
yes, yeah. This is a place where, see, we have the real and quality cost increase of 4%. That would be 4% above the cost of inflation. If inflation is held at 2%, as the Open Market Committee is trying to do, that would be 6%. We've seen cost increases of 6 and 7% for fire apparatus. There's another worksheet where I have examples of that. This most recent Engine 2 came in at less than 6%, but that's really not apples to apples because that's comparing a custom Engine 2, which was purchased in 2005, with a demo model, which has some modifications done to it. So that doesn't indicate that the escalation has gone down. That just indicates that for at least this piece of apparatus, there's been a step down in the type of equipment we're buying. Whether that continues for future equipment, that's for someone else to decide. And up here you can see the amounts that are calculated to be needed. Where it's in black, it's a new amount. Where it's grayed out is the same as the previous year. And that's where you can see it goes out the same amount every year, year after year, until you get to 2042. And in 2042 is when Engine 1 is expected to be replaced. And that $650,000 engine with the 2022 price is predicted to increase to $2.2 million by 2042. And that's what's driving the cost, and that's why all of a sudden it goes to zero, because this doesn't go out far enough to catch when the next piece of apparatus would be replaced.
There was enough money in the fund to buy the truck we're buying.
Yes. Slide this back. So the starting was 674,000. 250,000 was added, and withdrawals of 911,000, and that would bring the end of year balance down to 49,000. So there is enough, and the other thing is the spreadsheet calculates a level payment in nominal dollars. But of course, today's dollars are not the same as next year's dollars or the dollars 10 or 20 years from now. So it'd be quite reasonable, though I didn't build this into the spreadsheet, to look at this and say, well, we could put in 250,000 now because later on we will have to put in more, but later on 270,000 will be just like 250 now. And at some point 300,000 will be just like 250 now. Both because of inflation and also because the tax base is increasing slowly. Highway equipment. Highway equipment, an appropriation was calculated. That was voluntarily reduced to zero by the Public Works Director. And that was because he took the time to put all of these amounts in. As he was putting them in, there was some of these amounts where he actually wanted to try to justify them to me. And I said, no, I'm just the data entry clerk. To justify him, you're going to have to justify him to the select board. But last year that didn't happen. And so after putting in some of these, and I'll just show you one, a brush chipper for $66,000, where it had previously been a brush chipper for $15,000, and perhaps some other small changes. He just said, looking at the effect on the tax base, just make it zero. So last year the appropriation was zero. Here the amounts in this big red again are dates that I changed. This one is as it should be. That's directive from the Public Works Director. The loader tires were replaced, and so in 2025. So the expectation is they'll need to be replaced in another 20 years. They were replaced at this cost, and that's the expected cost 20 years from now. These amounts, the real and quality cost increase, these numbers are certainly debatable, and if people wanted to do more research on what these numbers should be, that would be welcome. Also, if either committee wants to make changes on what the end of year margin should be, in this case it's 4%, minimum of 10, max of 50,000. That certainly can be changed.
So John, last year, Steve changed the dates on those ones that are in red to 2026?
No, when it's in red means that I changed it, because these things were listed as these things were all listed as 2025.
But he didn't give you any idea of when he planned to buy those?
Correct. Well, we know the two Western Stars are this year.
But those, yeah, those are grant,
And that's largely a grant. The $97,000 is the cost, our cost above the grant. The grant paid for almost all of it, but not quite.
Well, I'm looking at the balance in the fund of 43,000, and that's certainly not enough to.
No, it's the end of your balance now.
That's the end of year balance.
Does that include the things
Yes.
that
So
he
the fund
didn't buy
had,
last year that he would buy this year?
correct, so the fund had started with 378,000. The fund is expected to earn 14, over the course of the year, 14,000 in income.
So the 350 is the items that he didn't buy last year that he's probably gonna buy this year, or he is buying.
As of what the inputs were last year.
Okay.
Very commonly, Steve Bullock in particular, and also his predecessor, many of these things they would look at and say, well, it's still going good, doesn't have any problems, and we can put it off another year. And that used to happen with highway equipment, often with transfer equipment, particularly with roads and bridges, with things like culverts, where they look at the culverts every year. I've seen photographs of, here's the photographic history of the culverts and the condition. And, you know, some of these you just don't know how they're used a lot. You don't know how long they're going to stay good. So there has been a history of these things being pushed off a year or two at a time. But these ones in red are ones that I changed. This amount I changed because that is the amount that the select board approved. That was from competitive bids. It was approved during fiscal year 2025, but the cost was not supposed to be incurred until fiscal year 2026. So that's why it's here. Land acquisition, conservation easement, this is just a placeholder. This has no input from the Conservation Commission. I just change this date every year and stick it as a placeholder.
Do we have any updates on that? Because I thought John was meeting.
Yes.
She has not given any public updates, no.
They're working. They're working.
Okay.
That's why I say this is just really simply a placeholder. That this is just, it's a plain guess looking at kind of like what some of them have cost in the past, but some of them have been twice that. So,
The other source of funds is the land use change, which has
correct.
even more money on it.
Correct.
Is it almost 400?
Yes, the total is 700. Over 700. That one is not here because the source of funding is from land use change tax. That funding amount changes radically every year. This year, $500 was added to the fund.
Now, this one, is there any way that this project that they're looking at would result in a warrant article this year for money? Could be, correct?
Maybe not.
There is no named agent, so money can only be spent from this by vote of the town.
Yes, I believe Dawn knew that she was working
Yeah.
to get something.
Yeah, they haven't,
We haven't put any money in this fund in years.
this one, no.
No.
Yeah. They're working with the person that's interested in doing it, but having a meeting with Southeast Land Trust, found out what the revenue sources would be and if there's any amount that is going to be expected from the town.
There are two library funds. The oldest one is the Library Capital Reserve Fund. There's no agent for this one, so expenditures have to be by vote of the town. And everything that had been listed to come from this fund, the $100,000 plus $30,000 that the voters had previously approved has been spent. Was spent a couple of years ago, and there's nothing listed here. All of the committees, commissions, departments made updates to this last year, except for the library trustees. They didn't respond. The other one is the library building. the Lee Library Building Capital Reserve Fund. That's for capital expenditures for the town's library building. Again, there was no input last year, so I know that many of these things were completed, this phase one. Rather than taking them out and going and changing all of this, I just left them in. They have old dates, so since they're prior to this year, these amounts are not used in calculations at all. In fact, that's when you do the updates, one of the things you then look at is summation. And when you look over here on the summation page, there's a table of the earliest planned years. And if you have updated everything correctly, there won't be anything in red, because there won't be any expenditures being listed as coming from a previous year. But rather than change those, I just left those.
So there's no significance to the fact that it shows a negative balance in the fund either?
Well, there is, in that there's other expenditures down here. Phase 2 exterior improvements in 2025 for $30,000. I know they did, I think, what they called phase 1 exterior improvements. I don't know about the phase 2, so maybe that's supposed to be moved forward. I know this one was done, interior model of the non-schoolhouse portion. The accessibility improvements, they were planning for 2026 at 175. The building addition, I had heard in their presentations to the select board that they were no longer planning for that. So I put an X to take that out. These other items are still being listed. This roof replacement and solar installation, the roof that was originally listed at $40,000. The roof was replaced, so I just subtracted that cost from the 40, and there's the 2420. And then the library roof replacement is put in as 30 years from when it was done, with the 2024 cost of $19,000 and the future cost expected to be $57,000. The other reason for leaving this in is that 2 years ago, when the library trustees put in all the things that they wanted to achieve, the cost was more than the total amount of money that they had. So they put in that $100,000 was going to come from the library foundation. So that shows up here, library foundation. It was a future expenditure, $110,000.
Did we ever figure out how that would work?
No. Sure.
Because so far, the foundation, they've been raising money, but they haven't spent it, right?
Not that I'm aware of, although I've seen.
Can we have a conversation with, I assume it would be legal counsel, how that would work? Would they give the money to the town? Would those expenses be incurred by them, or how would that work?
My understanding is they would have to give the money to the town, or they could actually give the money to the library trustees, I believe.
It would have to be a public hearing though, right?
Yep. Well, if it was over a certain amount, yes,
Oh, okay.
which pretty clearly would be.
Okay. Thanks.
So because I didn't know what to do with this, that's another reason why I just left all these things in. Ponds and cisterns. The only item there in red is a recent one, the fire pond at James Farm, and that was just recently approved by the select board with an estimated cost of, well, the estimated cost was $5,000 to $10,000, so it's listed here at $10,000 as an educated guess, and it's happening soon, now,
Today.
today. And then the other items are cisterns. And the amount that was set aside was $25,000. The calculated amount is $26,618. That shows, I didn't mention it, that's another reason for having an override. You obviously don't want to write warrant articles for amounts that have 5 or 6 significant figures. Just round it off.
Mr. Bugby,
Oh.
where is the new well expenditure coming from?
Town buildings.
Paying for that out of his pocket.
Okay, thank you, John, appreciate that.
No, that's coming out of the town buildings.
Town buildings.
Down
Yes.
buildings, okay, so it's not coming out of this one, okay.
Yeah, so disregard my comment about Mr.
I'd like that.
That's good that you mention it, because that's a change that I know about but did not add to town buildings.
Okay.
Revaluation happening this year, is that correct?
It is, yes, we're just getting ready to go out for bids.
So there's $50,000, I haven't got quotes yet.
We have not.
So
So
the-
we've warned that we are likely to see very few
the-
quotes back.
We're not
For-
having those people that did it the last time, no.
We are not.
Yeah.
I don't believe they're either not accepting any new
Yeah.
business, and they may be defunct at this point.
The last time we went out for bids, there were 4 bids. The town took the low bid. There were 2 that were essentially both $50,000, and then the 4th one was quite a bit higher than $50,000. So $50,000 was the median, and there were 2 right at $50,000.
And I think we're likely to see 2 bids this year. I'm expecting that we can get a quote out of Avatar and a quote out of MRI. I'm not sure that we're going to see anybody else.
So the fund appropriations were not approved. It was on the ballot, there was $10,000. That wasn't approved, but the fund does start with $72,000. And the income that's expected over the year is $2,800. This income is calculated as if the money was in the fund for the entire year. For many funds where the balance is very large and the withdrawals are small, that's quite accurate. Historically, the town, for at least the last 10 years, has tried to make the appropriations to trust and reserve funds at the beginning of the year, then carry the money and then request reimbursements at the end of the fiscal year in June. That way the money stayed with the trustees of trust funds longer. Historically, the trustees of trust funds have been able to get a better return than the treasurer, only because our money is much more stable. For the treasurer, something like 80% of his peak funds go in and out twice a year. Whereas for trustees of trust funds, in some years, like this past year, it was $100,000 roughly. So it's a tiny, tiny fraction. In a really big year, like the previous year, it was a little over $1 million. But that's still much smaller cash flows, and it's just once a year compared with what the treasurer has to deal with.
Andy, can our accounting system do something so we can track those? So an expense comes in that needs to be reimbursed to the trustees, can we make it like an AR entry or something like that? So we can track those particular
We
things?
probably could, yeah. And I'm not sure exactly what Taylor and Brenner are using to differentiate right now, but yeah, I can certainly do customer
Because when she
reports.
processes whatever that expense is, if she can do the corresponding entry in accounts receivable and, or accounts payable, whatever it is.
Receivables.
would be-
The town is going to receive it from the trustees.
Yes, okay, yeah.
We will write a check to the town.
Just something so we can track it, so.
I know it used to be done, I mean, we get a
It still
printout
is-
that shows, yeah, it still is done in a way. And that's why the trustees of trust funds every month in the town lobby, town office lobby, there's an updated one-page spreadsheet of all the funds, what's in the funds, what happened that month. And there's a disclaimer that the amount that we're showing is the amount that we are holding.
Okay.
And some part of that amount may have already been spent or may be encumbered for some expense and thus not available.
And just remember, and I guess, hopefully this selectman had looked at the audit, but one of the things I believe they were recommending is to not do that anymore. They wanted it done at the same time.
Yeah.
So I don't know about the two select people, if they're concurring, if you want to follow the audit or if you want to follow this other method I've been currently using. The trustees make more money from the money that we have
Right, so why?
than the treasurer, so I think, at least in my opinion, we should continue assuming the same process. And,
Yeah, it wasn't a major finding, and it had never come up before.
Right.
I think they sometimes feel they need to find something, and they decided to find that year.
okay.
In 2025 was a small expenditure year, but 2024 was more than $1 million, and there were expenses, reimbursable expenses every month. So if you had that process, Taylor would have had to have been submitting requests to the trustees of trust funds every month.
Mhm.
Trustees would have to be meeting every month to review,
Mhm.
and you would still have to check it again at the end of the year to be sure that you hadn't missed something. So it'd be more work for town employees, more work for the trustees, and I can't see a good reason for doing it.
Okay. Just as long as everybody's comfortable with that particular process, so.
As was noted, the auditors never complained about that before, as long as it happened within,
Yeah.
the expenses and the reimbursement happened within the same fiscal year.
There's been something similar to that every year. One year, they were direly concerned that the town administrator had access to check stock. The next year, that wasn't a concern of theirs at all. When I pointed out that we corrected it, they asked why I had corrected it. Did I need access to check stock from time to time?
That's 2 years ago.
Recreation. So recreation has, a year ago, only had one item, and that was tennis court refurbishment, which they said they probably were not going to do as planned, so it was Xed out, and that was it.
Does anybody know if the rec committee had a meeting with the other one?
Oh, Oyster Overlay.
Yes, to see, because the people in Oyster River want to explore turning the sheep field into a smaller, what is it, youth size? Yeah, youth size baseball thing, which there's gonna be a cost for that.
But not for us, I think.
Yeah. So I don't- Does anybody know if they have a meeting? No?
I don't believe they have, no.
Okay.
I think the other thing to check in with them, though I think it's really Karen and Tom, is some of the equipment at Little River is probably gonna be replaced soon. I noticed the, I don't know, spider web thing that's starting to like break down.
Karen actually has, I don't know if she's made a request recently, but she has an inventory of things and things that they would like to see fixed that I know she's discussed with the DPW director.
Okay.
In previous years, the way this has been updated is I printed out, I made a special version of this and printed out with extra line spaces between each item, and department heads or committees, commissions could fill it in on paper and send it back to me, or what worked much better was I sat right here with the department head with the spreadsheet on the screen and we made changes. That way, the department head could see the effect of the inputs, and sometimes right away they could see, oh, that's a problem, if we change it like this, it works out better. Road and bridge.
I'm sorry, can I ask one more question about the recreation fund?
Sure.
Can that fund be used to fix things, or is it just for new things?
This is the purpose up
Yeah.
here, land purchase, construction, upgrade of new, such as
So he was right.
So it's a,
What's the definition of upgrade?
Is upgrade like maintenance, or is upgrade something different? What would the trustees of the trust fund consider?
Upgrade from what it was originally, or upgrade from what it is now.
it is a capital reserve fund.
Yeah.
So that would be for capital expenses. So I think that would mean that, like, if you're talking about that spider web, that's the thing with ropes.
Yeah.
So if somebody damaged and cut one and you had to replace it, that would be a repair.
Right,
If the whole thing is degraded to the point where you put in a whole new rope system,
yeah.
that I would guess that the trustees, I'm real careful not to speak for the other
I
two,
understand.
that they would consider that just the same as replacing the heating system in a building.
Okay.
Um,
And the agents to expend in this, are they the select board, or they, where is, I know you have it here somewhere.
There is no agent,
Oh, okay,
so that has to be voted by the town.
okay.
You also have an expendable trust fund for recreation that, I can't remember exactly how much it said, it was on the sheet that I sent you.
$13,001
Oh,
and no cents.
As of that day.
As of October 1st.
that might have 2 cents.
Yeah, it might have 2 cents. See, they all have no cents, which I'm very skeptical about that.
I believe I
You round.
rounded them to zero.
Yeah.
Well, then you should,
It probably was not an accurate rounding either, I just made them zero.
okay.
It wasn't an accurate rounding.
Offended
I
by
didn't-
that.
I didn't debate up or down, I just.
Oh.
Just cut it off.
He did not follow the rules of rounding, he truncated.
Oh. Does he get a slap on his wrist from the math professor over here, or?
Nothing nice to
I
say.
think he'd probably get an F on your class, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and then I would, was it,
With the red
Never mind.
pencil.
yes, actually, I prefer to write in green.
Oh,
It's
green
less
now,
angry.
not red? Okay.
This table that I sent out, one of the useful things is it lists who are the agents,
Okay.
if there is an agent.
Yeah, no, I have that.
And the spreadsheet that's updated each month, that's in the little book at the town hall, there's a preface page, the first page that's listed, shows the names of all the funds, and it also lists who the agents are, if there's an agent. Road and bridge. There is, I think, a significant issue here, and that is the state will pay, as I understand it right now, the state will pay for 80% of the cost of a bridge replacement, but the town has to pay the money up front, and then the town gets reimbursed. So when you have a bridge replacement that costs $2 million or $2.5 million, how does there's a question of how does the town pay that up front? And I think this is a question that the select board, the treasurer, and perhaps the trustees of trust funds should talk about. How do we do that? Does money have to come out of the reserve fund? How does the money come out if it's supposed to go back, because you can't put it back unless the town votes, etc.? Or is there enough money in fund balance to cover it? I don't know that the answer is, but it should be figured out before there's an opportunity and a need to replace a bridge.
We've never had that problem, we've never ended up in this situation before.
Yeah, we did
Must
it.
have.
High Road.
Yes.
High Road was the last one.
And what did you do?
We had enough money because it wasn't that expensive,
Right.
right?
Are these estimated costs the 20% or the whole thing?
Whole thing, we have to
Whole thing.
do it front.
I understand, but I just. was
No,
wondering.
this 500,000?
Yeah.
That's the 20.
That's the
20.
20%.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah,
Of course,
that's,
just like everything else, bridges go up in price too, so.
What? You mean that's why there's that inflation?
How quick does the reimbursement happen?
I have not seen the process unfold. I know for like Packers Falls, once the project was complete, they reimbursed us. That was grant money from DES and Fish and Game, but we got the money from DES fairly quickly. I'm going to say within 30 to 45 days of completion of the project.
Thing you'd have to do, because we don't have $2.5 million sitting around doing nothing. We'd have to do like TANs or something like that to float, tax anticipation notes or something like that, basically a loan. That's the only way we could do it. Because right now, with the fund balance, 1 point, or is it 2 million? 2 million something.
It's right around there, yeah.
But not all of that's cash, so.
No.
So,
And I don't know, what the cost on some of these will be. The Packers Falls, for example, that was essentially a culvert with, some timber bedding around it, and that was 600,000 there.
yeah, we're talking millions for these.
Okay.
Yeah, you notice these estimate types are all mostly a grade C or D. Solar. There's one thing listed here, that's the buyout of the PPA at the transfer station. That has a minimum cost stipulated in the contract. That's this amount, the $145,000. The contract says that's the minimum, that the actual cost will be calculated by the owners. There's a process where the town can contest that and so forth. The cost of these installations is going down. So the wisdom I've heard is that it's unlikely to be more than that. But there is a 10% margin put in, and that's showing 38,000. But the amount that was deposited was 35. The other thing is that the way the purpose is written, this does not have to be used for that. That's not built into the purpose. It's for purchase of solar energy systems. So it's any kind of solar energy systems for the town. In fact, it's general enough that it doesn't even have to be photovoltaic. Town buildings, town hall. Here's where the $6,000, $63.31 for the cemetery shed replacement is listed as coming from ARPA 2. So that's a leftover. I did change these dates because they were previously listed as happening in 2025. The plan here was that a new shed would be purchased for the cemetery, and the shed that's at the cemetery would be moved to the highway department. So that's why the highway equipment shed is listed for a cost of $0. And the reason is that the existing cemetery shed, its configuration with the size of it and the orientation of the entry door doesn't fit their needs very well. And
Can we add the well?
yes, we could add the well. I could just stick it in right here, even though it's out of order. Whoops. Sorry.
Okay.
You can tell I do not type on a laptop
Okay.
very often.
We need the data entry person to have a data entry assistant.
Yes.
We all have limitations,
And 226, and the estimate was 30 to 50,000. The upper cost there was the cost of the well, piping, and worst case possible if the fanciest filtering needs to be put in.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that going deeper and new is not gonna give us the same muck we're getting out of the old one, but.
And there's questions about what else you might find in the water. So what other kind of filtering do you need? Do you have radon and other things that are bad? And that was why it went to 50,000.
I think there's also some complication with how either the electricity or the piping go from between buildings there. It wasn't wildly expensive, but it added some cost to Steve's estimate.
When I talked to Steve, he originally been planning to run it straight from the well location to the old schoolhouse basement. And I pointed out that previous designs, it had been run in a kind of dog leg, which was to go around the previously planned library addition. And so I don't know if that's factored into the cost.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but he had mentioned that he had
I think that's, you can't really call it competitive bids.
But it's a bid.
It's more like a market research, I guess. And it's a and I don't know why.
Can we get John the information that Steve gained from the vendor to stick in the link?
Yeah, right now, there are, as I understand it, there are two ways of doing links in Excel. And this is the crude, simple way, where this link has the link to where to find the file. There's a more sophisticated way that I haven't implemented, where you can take account for still being able to find those files even when you move stuff around. Right now, the way it is, if you move stuff around, the link is going to the wrong place. So I haven't fixed that.
Is that object linking? I don't know if that's.
There was a way that in cells you would be able to put in, it's kind of like indirect addressing,
Okay.
where you can, in a cell, you can put in the information, and for the link, it will go to find part of the address or where to find stuff.
Okay.
I just saw there was a way to do it, and I haven't tried working on it. So that should say
Can we change that 2026? Yep.
And by saying 2026, it says that the 2026 cost is $50,000, and here in 2026 it's $50,000. There are a lot of other items down here that are still here from previous years, in some cases several years before, which have all been X'd out. There's site work at the town center, the office building. This is just a good example. It shows what you can do with the spreadsheet. Previously, the office building, part of the cost was expected to come from a bond, in part from the capital reserve fund. So to make that work in the spreadsheet, the cost is divided across two lines with how much comes from each. But right now those are all X'd out. When I initially put in the feature to allow for the X, my rationale for it was that before that, the only way to have an entry not count as a cost against the fund was either to change the date to be way beyond the 20 years, or just make the cost zero or delete it. But deleting it or making the cost zero, you lose that information. And even if that item is the lowest on your priority list, it still would be good practice to keep it on the list instead of deleting it, because next year there may be other things added. And again, then when you're determining your priorities, you don't want to lose what was on the list last year.
Could you keep the data like in a note in the cell?
Well, what this does is X means that no funding is known or planned. So you have all this information. You could even have a link to where this information came from. It's just not being charged against any of these other funding sources. It's not being charged against the Capital Reserve Fund or any of these other sources.
And Rebecca, John and I had a conversation with Mr. Vincent.
Oh,
It's
okay.
our intention, and I'm just checking, it's our intention to not ask for anything this year, but plan on asking for something in the next fiscal year, so March of 2027.
For the town, like,
Yeah, so that's our intention at the moment. Nothing's written in stone.
for a new
but-
town building,
Yeah, town,
like the whole thing.
yeah.
I have an ongoing conversation with the owner of the present town office, actually spoke with him yesterday morning, and that building is very likely to come up for sale in the not too distant future. There's some estate settlement that's going on now, but
It's in a trust, right, or something?
it is, it's being broken up. It's actually going to the owner's brother, and he has told me twice now that his brother is not interested in hanging onto the building and would look to sell it.
And our lease terminates when?
Oh, we've got another 2 years, I believe, and we have a renewal clause as well.
For three after that.
Yep.
Do we have any idea what that building might be worth on the market?
I would say right now, I guesstimate is somewhere between $800 and $1 million.
Continuing, transfer station. This is one, again, where the Public Works Director, this previously calculated amount was about 90,000. And so the original override was 90,000. And the Public Works Director said, last year, this FPT is just a wish list, so cut that in half. So that's where the highway appropriation was reduced to zero, and this one was reduced from 90 to 45,000.
Have we paid back the fund yet from buying the roll-off truck yet?
I don't believe that's been paid off in full, no.
Do we have like 1 or 2 years left? Seems like we have.
I can get you that information.
Yeah. Because the idea was to buy the truck, because it would save us money.
Well, the expense came out of this fund,
Yeah.
and as soon as the expense came out of this fund, then the required appropriation went way up.
Yeah.
Because this had been much lower than that. And I think it was either 80 or 90% of the cost of the truck came out of the transfer station.
Yeah.
And the balance was highway equipment. Highway equipment.
What you're likely to hear from the DPW director at your next meeting of this concern, of this budget, trash compactor, baler, are probably things that he's not necessarily considering wish list items that are going to need to be.
Yeah, that bailiff keeps getting band-aided.
If Mr. Banks and Mr.
Yes.
Hoyt move out of town, we'll be in trouble.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Because they had to let manufacture a part.
There've been
From
several
scratch.
parts that have been hand manufactured by local residents to keep that going, yes.
The other thing we need to do is, we need to request, if he's amenable, for the department heads to have a meeting with Mr. Tappan to do their updates. We haven't asked him if he's possibly interested in doing that for us. And also directing the department heads to have a meeting with him.
Are we gonna run into time problems?
We will see.
I mean, I think the big ones are Steve.
Steve,
Really, I think if you talk to no one else, Steve would be the person to talk to. The other one that, of course, hasn't been updated in a long time is the library.
2/3 of the line items here are Steve's.
Oh, I mean.
I think it's more than 2/3.
so I guess if
But-
Mr. Tappan is amenable, maybe contact Mr. Bullock and have a meeting with him and then kind of work your way down in terms of,
I'm amenable to that. What happened last year, particularly with Steve, I said, you know, Steve, when he was putting in items or changing items, there was, on more than one occasion, he wanted to try to make a justification to me about why that cost should be something. And I said, no, you prepare that for the select board. You need to justify that to the select board. It's the select board that should be questioning you. And that is what never happened.
Well, maybe that should be a
and-
select board Steve meeting.
No, well, the point I was gonna make is that I'm comfortable doing that as long as the select board is then going to review the inputs and make their decision as to yay or nay on these line items and the cost. Because otherwise, Steve's assessment of it as kind of like a wish list is true. You have a significant, I've observed there's I think, in my opinion, a significant difference department head to department head as perhaps to how fiscally conservative they may be. Some may try to be more conservative than others. I don't think that department heads should be in that position. It should be the select board that applies a uniform, sort of uniform rating system to all departments. Because it's the select board that should be making those decisions of expenditures for fire versus police versus highway versus library and so forth.
so maybe what we ask
So.
is
I get-
update what's there in terms of if there's new numbers or new information and add on what they think should be added on, making no qualifications in terms of should this be done or not, and let us do that particular process.
I think we need to revise the CIP, bring it back to what it was. That would take Mr. Tappan off the hook at this point, having to deal with all the different department heads, even though some are.
No, that's not the problem.
Let me finish. We had the CIP, and it worked pretty good. The committee is what I'm talking about, not the, but the committee worked together. In fact, there was one that was even passed, but now I think there's one member was left, right?
There's nobody.
There's no members left whatsoever, so it would have to be reconstituted. Because I think it's important to have that as an advisory function to the board, just like the ABC is to the board itself. I have a couple of technical questions, maybe you can answer. Who owns this software?
We do.
It's
It should be
a
someplace-
spreadsheet that I wrote.
and it should be in the administrative office.
Should be. Does town administrative have access to it?
He has a copy of it at the moment.
I have the static copy that I sent you all for this meeting, which was from, I think that was November of '24.
Yeah, it hasn't been changed since
Do
then.
you know how to use it?
It's static, I can't use it.
There's,
The point I'm trying to get to is, we have a member of the community, there's nothing against John at this point, we have a member of the community that's not tied to anything. And I think it'd be prudent if we reestablish the CIP committee, that John joins the CIP committee as a full member. And then the department heads would report to the CIP membership, and then, of course, the use of this material, which probably only 1 or 2 people know how to use, which I don't at this point, so I'm very dependent at this point, so we get the information moved. So I'm hoping to reestablish that.
If you
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
it would help us tremendously at this point, instead of having, John not being a member of any committee or commission at this point that handles these things.
The difference is the CIP committee by statute should be looking at long-range things, doing analysis, not this day-to-day stuff. At least try and envision it's an administrative thing. And
Yes, but I think John's point is the CIP would listen to Steve's reasoning for these
Yes.
things and give us an educated
Mm.
opinion beyond Steve's opinion, because as Mr. Hammond has pointed out, he's just the bookkeeper.
Right.
He doesn't want to make judgment calls, so having a group that could make judgment calls that aren't necessarily us on every single thing.
There's two very big differences between a proper CIP, and the town has never had a capital improvements program. And in fact, the town had a member of the previous planning board that came to the select board and said, the biggest capital expenses facing the town are not even in the CIP. And that was town buildings. And that's an expense that was known as far back as 1985 with the creation of the Office Space Capital Reserve Fund, which was changed sometime in the 90s into the Town Buildings Capital Reserve Fund. But those were not in the CIP.
Yeah, I agree, they were.
In addition, I've emphasized that what I was trying to provide here is a tool that properly does the arithmetic. Previous CIP never properly did the arithmetic. I'm sorry, but
Oh, no,
it
I'm not
it never
questioning
did.
what the,
Previous,
and-
previous.
yeah, I understand.
And this is a tool to calculate, if you're going to buy all of these things, how much do you need to put into the reserve fund? And so therefore, everything that you expect to come out of that reserve fund should be listed. If it's a capital expense, the trustees of trust funds, that fits the purpose of the fund, the trustees of trust funds will approve it, even if it's only $1,000.
I'm just trying to get to the reporting structure. That's what I'm trying,
Yeah,
not the,
what-
not questioning this. It's something that's way beyond me to begin with. But I see the purpose of this. I just hope to try to reestablish more of a committee approach where department heads come in, instead of working with you personally, they're working with a group of individuals.
I think that you definitely need a capital improvements program.
One of the problems that we ran into on this is how many times does each department head have to meet with whom? For example, they do a budget presentation with this group. Whatever you want to call this thing, it needs to be updated. So they have to meet with John.
Yep.
And then having to meet with a CIP committee on top of it is another,
No, they would meet together. John would be a member of the CIP.
okay.
Can I read again?
I think you
From-
definitely need a CIP because you
Yes,
have
you-
two warrant articles on the books. One saying that the board is, that the town needs a CIP, and the other one saying that the board shall appoint the CIP, which is RSA regulated as to how that's done.
I didn't
So-
mean this to be a discussion point now, or voting
No,
point
no,
at this
It's-
point.
Yeah, we could go on,
We could go on
unfortunately, we could go on all
forever,
night with
but
this.
I wanted to put the seed here so the Board of Selectmen can continue to discuss this a little bit.
In getting to where we need to get to this year, where the budget process is to get to, in the short run, that what a CIP is not gonna get put together between now and the end
You're
of
right.
budget season. So I would hope that the select board would ask John to get this updated so that we have the information for the warrant articles. Is that a realistic course of action?
It's fine with me.
Where do you see the flow, though?
I would like to have the select board commit to or put into a schedule, when are they going to then review this? So that I can say, hold your analysis for the select board because they will be reviewing this on and point to, here it is on their calendar.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll have to come up with that, but,
And
Yeah, but
I know you don't need to set it now, but that's,
but in terms of John's point, can we agree that we need to appoint some people? If that is the case, then would Mr. LaCourse ask the planning board, we need a member from the planning board on this
Yes.
particular committee. So if you can officially ask them, can they appoint somebody to serve on this particular committee? Other than that, we have no other members. So can we put something in the e-crier, and then if people can think of people that would be good for this? Because I think that seemed to work better than asking a general,
Yes.
so.
We've called people with that much success, but
yeah, this is a bad time for the planning board, a busy time.
I know,
Very
but,
busy.
you know, they're big boys, they wear the big boy pants, and the girls wear the big boy pants and whatever, so I think.
Watch where you're stepping.
ooh,
So I've got on this soapbox multiple times,
Yep.
and I'm going to do it again. The CIP is an outline of anticipated expenditures for capital projects. Capital projects are those that relate to infrastructure and the purchase of land, and in some cases, engineering studies. So there are not 100-something odd capital projects planned for this town. There's more something like a half a dozen. Town office building, salt shed, expansion of highway garage, rehabilitation of town hall,
Library.
library access, and so forth. Those are all capital projects. And both in the planning board handbook and in the statute, the only term that's used for the things that go into the CIP is the word projects. And much of what is in the FPT, like replacing a door and a furnace and buying an extended lip grapple for the skid steer, those are not projects.
Is buying something like a fire truck, that's not a project, even though it,
I would argue that even buying a fire apparatus, like replacing a fire truck after 20 years, is not a project.
most communities do. include
Most
fire
communities do
apparatus
include it.
CIP.
But I would argue that it's not.
At one time, the CIP considered anything over $5,000 to be part of a layout like this, and then it was moved to $10,000. I know other companies are higher, like $50,000.
I guess what I'd be looking for the CIP committee is to do the analysis of those particular things. Like the fire truck, yeah, it probably is a capital item, because it's so expensive, and getting more expensive. But also in terms of a fire engine, right now we found out we're forced to do this particular, demo truck, but going forward, will we do a demo truck, or will we do a custom? Those are two different things. If you look at what that fire truck costs, the next one, it's $1.8 million, and one after that is $2.2 million. Can this town afford those particular expenses going forward? We were chomping the bit at $1.2 million.
Yes, we were.
So going forward, I would look for the CIP committee to do analysis. Does that make sense to do a demo truck? Does it make sense to do a custom? That's what I'd be looking for that particular committee to do.
see that, one of the problems that we ran into with the analysis was, well, take the fire truck for an example. Nobody is going to look at a $1.2 million customized truck and say, gee, that's a better idea than $800,000 demo, if it meets our needs. However, the people that are on the committee don't necessarily know, A, the needs, and B, the sensitivity of the community in terms of what they want. I mean, there may be some people in the community who will look at a demo truck and say, that's unacceptable. We need a truck that, for that much money, we should be spending a 1.2. So that's an analysis that it's hard for lay people to get their arms around. We kind of went back and forth with feeling like we really didn't have the expertise to answer some of these questions. The overriding project that kept coming back up in all of our discussions was the office building. And once again, I don't know what kind of analysis you would expect from that group about that decision. I think we probably, as a community, have researched that decision until we're blue in the face.
Blue in the face.
So I don't know what value added there's going to be from the committee about some of these decisions, partially from a perspective that we don't have, the committee members might not feel they have the expertise, but also not even knowing what questions to ask. You know, if you want an analysis, that presupposes that you have questions to answer.
At least it's a sounding board for the department head to talk to
That's
at
that,
this point.
yes.
I think
now,
it's important,
and
even though
we didn't-
we're, like John presenting this, there's
That's
questions.
a good point, John.
I don't know what you know. I'm not a person that handles this type of material, but as a department chair at the university, I have an assistant that handles this, and they interpret it for me. I just make the decisions at this point. But it's important, just like we have an ABC. Remember before, the ABC met separately for the Board of Selectmen,
Yes.
and I think it was one of the persons about a few years ago that cemented it together, because instead of having, like you said, having it talk so many different times is ridiculous. So I think that my push at this point is a better sounding board, so John doesn't have to be a single person handling a lot of this. But I would love for him to be on a committee. I think it'd be most helpful as well.
In response to your question, like for the fire truck, you have an expert in-house. You can also ask other fire departments in terms of their particular thing, but also in terms of like the office building, it's the same process that John and everybody else has served on the town vision or whatever. We bring in people, experts that know about these things, and have them do presentations to us about those things. Because the stuff that John probably knows most of this, but I was educated in terms of some of the things that we need to know to do that. And we get that information from these people from the outside. So yes, you might not have the expertise to say, should we get, asphalt shingles or whatever. There's people out there that come and tell you their particular opinion. Does that resonate with the particular group of people? They might believe that particular thing, or we need to do more research. One of the things that John did extensive research about is elevators. I know more about elevators than I ever wanted to know about. But it's something like that you go out and you research those particular things. That's what I'd be looking for the committee to do. Because I don't think we're going to constitute another town center vision committee or whatever like that. That's what I've looked for that particular group to do.
Two points. One, as an engineer who has worked on projects and has also worked on in companies where what I did was not projects, a project is a task that you don't repeat. It's a one-off. It's a one-time. So building an office building, that's a project. Buying a replacement piece of fire apparatus is not a project. It's just the same as the last time. If you are going to reconfigure the fire department, which is something that's being explored, or is there a possibility?
Just explored.
Explored.
No commitments yet.
Correct. It's just, but being explored. That would be a project, because there's a lot of pieces to that, and how do you go about doing that, and what does it mean for what apparatus you need, and where is that apparatus positioned, and so forth. That's a project. A new salt shed, that's a project. And I think it's fairly easy to do the analysis. What are the problems with the salt shed you have right now? Well, right now, when they deliver new salt, the salt is dumped outside the shed, because you can't unload a dump truck inside the shed. New salt sheds, are tall enough, big enough, drive the truck in, you dump the salt, and it doesn't matter if it's going to rain in an hour. It's already inside. So what does that cost the town? How much can you deliver at a time? If you have to buy in smaller quantities, so those are things that can be analyzed, and you can, and also how long is the existing structure going to last? And those are the things that I think a CIP committee, that kind of analysis, should be doing. When we had a CIP committee that was trying to do those things, the chair of that committee did work on developing a mechanism for prioritizing projects like that. But he was dissuaded from using that mechanism, and so it didn't come to anything. Because at that time, the town was considering the office building. But those are the things that a capital improvements program would include. The town is too small to have many of the other things that would be in a capital improvements program, like when do we need it to expand the sewage treatment plant, when do we need the new access road to the airport, et cetera. You know, a lot of places, I mean, that's real in other cities, but not in Lee. Also, if we're going to expand, we're going to expand sewage line first to the north, and then we're going to go to the west, and so forth. So that's where capital improvements program, it's very easy to see what goes into it. But I think that the capital improvements program literally would have something like a handful, half a dozen items in it. But there would be analysis to it. And ideally, the answers from that would come before this process. This needs to include all the expenses that you might ask to be reimbursed from the fund. The trustees we don't say, oh, it's only $5,000, it's less than $5,000, so we can't reimburse you. If it's a capital expense, a new door, it's $2,000, $3,000, yep.
More than 3,000.
The last one I remember writing a check for was $1,900, but
Yes, those
we
doors are
haven't-
expensive, right, Andy?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
very expensive.
It's always important, though, to try to, I want to be able to tease it out, want with respect to need. And there's always an issue. We'd like to have brand-new things out here, but we don't necessarily need it. So I understand this can all be adjusted, and as the transfer station director, or public works director says, I don't need this anymore, and they just cut it off at this point. But we went through this a while back, trying to understand what is real need and what is a want. And we can develop a list of a lot of stuff, and the public sees this kind of things of wants, and it scares the hell out of them. So that's why I don't want to call it a capital improvement program, because I totally agree with John, it doesn't exist in that form. It's a capital improvement committee. Let's just change the title at this point to make it more of a sounding board, so some of these things can be teased out. Same question the Board of Selectmen would probably ask, do you really need this now, or is this a pie in the sky? Or can it wait another couple of years, and then these modifications can be made inside this particular plan? So that's my hope, how this thing would work out. I think it'd be useful to the Board of Selectmen to have a different set of eyes sometimes too. Just like we have at the ABC, that looks at it independently from the Board of Selectmen.
The other thing that these committees shouldn't even be considering, which I guess we consider, is the political ramifications of these particular things. So, yeah, everything we need to have is $2 million that we need to spend. That's never going to pass.
That's correct.
That's never going to pass. So we have to temper those particular things with what can we afford this particular year. And I think your prioritization things will come into play in terms of what can we do this year.
Exactly. And sometimes let's call it a CIP committee, negotiations occur between the department heads of deciding who would need it first or what, and I think that helps the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah. Because the thing that scares me is the fire department.
Yes.
Because I don't see us spending $2.2 million, whatever it is, 12 years down the road, at this particular point. Maybe in that particular year we'll say, oh my God, it's only $2.2 million? Yes, let's buy one. Oh.
Can't we get the reevaluation fund?
Yeah, well, it looks like we got enough money, but I think,
money.
yeah, maybe that needs to be, because I assume we're gonna put some money in this next year, save for the next one. But yeah, I think that needs to be upfront, that just because you don't put money in, doesn't mean the assessment's not gonna happen.
We're gonna spend it anyways.
Yeah. The other thing we have to remember is, I don't know if it's this year, Andy, when will it hit? Will it hit next fall? The review assessments?
Yeah, they would start probably around December, have results to you in the spring, and then,
The other thing we gotta remember, that when it's caught, when we got caught about 4 years ago, in terms of those credits, because we got burned on those.
Oh,
And when talking to other select people, that they were like, yeah, you should have known that. You should have known that was gonna happen. It's like, okay, never knew that, but they went up tremendously, and that's why we had all those people, it was like 30 people that were like, I can't afford this. So we need to change those, and I don't know if we do that this March, because we don't know what it's gonna be. So basically, there's like a year that you have, people are gonna get stuck. Somebody wants you.
that's important.
So maybe we can put that on Denise's little board, that when do we change those? Or when do we-
yeah, I can get a timeline from Scott Marsh, just exactly what it's gonna be.
A comment about needs and wants. I've been on multiple committees that have tried to find a line between needs and wants. And it is a waste of time. I believe that everything should be expressed as a need for a particular purpose. Now, in some cases, extreme case, I need this so I can feel good about myself. Or I need this because the department head in the adjacent town got one. So if you express everything as a need for a purpose, then you can actually analyze, is that purpose worth paying for? And I think all department heads should be able to quantify each item. What is the benefit? What is the purpose? In some cases, there would be equipment there where the alternative is renting it, which may be more expensive, or you can save X number of man hours, people hours, person hours per year, and so it pays to buy the equipment. And I think that probably that's where the $66,000 wood chipper would lose, because I suspect that the state uses the wood chipper enough that it's worth having a $66,000 wood chipper, and the town of Lee probably doesn't.
Eric?
Is there more about the spreadsheet you have to tell us?
No.
No.
That's it.
Are you spreadsheet out?
It's 8:37,
Yeah.
and we're having a conceptual conversation about CIP, and I don't think the ABC has anything to do with that, so.
Thank you, John. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions for John about his presentation this evening?
Actually, I want to thank him for his presentation. I learned a lot, even though that's a lot to swallow.
Yes.
So do we want to give a date in terms of when we'll get back to this?
Should I, at this point, should I turn the meeting back over to the select board?
If you're all done,
Yes,
motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn. All in favor?
All right, you're
It
done.
is now your select board meeting.
So do we want to set up a date in terms of when we do this review process?
I don't know that I can. I don't know that I can do it.
No, which one is this? I want to find out.
That's Noah.
Where do you need it?
Well, that's the thing, they're doing a presentation on December, 8th, to the select board of their, So do we want to have it before that particular process, I would assume?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So
Strawberry.
it sounds like a regular meeting is not a good place to do that, so we need a special meeting.
That's correct.
So, so we need John some time to do this.
Yeah, I think we need to know what Steve's availability is, the library's availability.
So how would we do something the early part of November?
That sounds good.
17th.
Is that that's not a board meeting, right?
Right, it's the opposite of one of our board meetings. We meet on
Right.
the 10th? Is that right?
Oh, yeah, with the other,
Even though
Fire
Veterans Day is
people.
Tuesday? Like you guys, we're all working, just making sure. Yeah, so we have the 3rd and the 17th in November so far that are.
so why don't we try the 17th? That'll give John a month plus to meet with Steve and anybody else that you have time to meet with.
And I have to,
I can meet almost any day with a day or two's notice.
Okay.
I mean, Steve obviously is the longest.
Mhm.
It probably takes, well, actually, probably what takes the longest is Steve goes and figures out new prices for many of these things.
Mhm.
So I don't see that time.
Yeah.
I just see the data entry time, and it really isn't that long. An hour and a half.
and Steve is expecting that he's gonna make contact with you.
Well, can we ask you, Andy, to have a conversation with each of the department heads?
Yep.
That John's gonna be requesting a meeting for them. We're looking for, one, updates from them in terms of the items that are on their list, and two, if there's other items that need to be put on their list and/or taken off the list.
Yep.
Are you two in agreement
Yeah,
with
that's
that?
fine.
I agree.
So I know Steve and the fire chief and the police chief are all expecting that they would
And just-
John sometime.
Just be clear that John is there to input the information, not to do an analysis of the
Correct.
information. And then we'll be having a meeting on the 17th of November to discuss those. So they need to be available,
Yes.
so when we go through it. So maybe we can have the non-Steve Bullock people in first, and then we'll do Steve till whatever. So if you can have them clear their calendars for the 17th.
Yep.
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock?
Yeah,
6 o'clock.
we're changing to the 6 o'clock routine.
Well, for select board, we usually do 6 o'clock.
Yep. We did 7 o'clock because Eric has a commitment.
You know, the planning board is going to 6 o'clock.
I like 6 o'clock. It's almost my bedtime, guys.
Yep.
Yes.
Anything else?
So I have contacts for all, addresses for all the department heads. So what I've done in the past is send them out their pages,
Okay.
so that they know what's there.
Yep.
And I will not get that sent out tomorrow, but I will get it sent out
Okay.
this week.
I'll send out an email tomorrow with the dates and times and I'll copy you on it, John.
And then I just ask them to, they can send back paper, but by far the best way is I just meet with them here
Okay.
on the screen.
I'll let you work out whatever that
So
is.
I plan that with the department, that they talk to me directly.
And let us know, let Andy know if you need anything. I'm not sure what you need, but you can liaise with him.
Yeah. I mean,
If you come tomorrow at 10, Eversource is bringing coffee and donuts.
Oh,
Why are they trying to butter us up?
We have a new community relations manager.
So they're trying to butter you up?
increase those rates again.
Okay.
All right, anything
We're
else?
No, motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
So for you to say entertain a motion. I sell more cupcakes than I once one. I meant to
I
like,
want a
you
cupcake.
could have them while we were sitting here so no one would crash. I got chocolate, blueberry.